In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Good morning. Well, by a happy coincidence, today, July 20th, happens to fall on a Sunday, which gives me the opportunity to speak to a Sunday crowd about the prophet Elijah, whose feast day we celebrate today. The fiery and glorious prophet Elijah, the sky-riding charioteer, as the morning Orthros hymn described him. And if you looked at the icon in the narthex, that depicts his sky-ridingness. I'm going to begin with a few facts and information and highlights about Elijah, but that's not this is not the crust of my sermon today. The great prophet lived over 800 years ago. In terms of his virtue, this man was a prayer warrior. In today's epistle lesson, it says, the fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And they even referenced Elijah. That was St. Jacobus in today's epistle. This, like I said, a prayer warrior. You want this man to pray for you. His prayers alone brought back the dead to life. His prayers changed weather patterns. Now a drought, now rain when he called for it. He called down fire from heaven to prove a point. At one point, during the drought, the Lord sent him into the wilderness and commanded ravens, those scavenger birds whose nature it is to steal food. God commanded the ravens to nurture Elijah during this drought and give him food morning and night. He is only one of two people in the entire world, in the entire history of the world, to have never tasted death. Furthermore, it is prophesied that when the Lord our God comes for the great and final judgment, he will be preceded by the Old Testament prophet Elijah, which tells you something of his importance. So there are many wonders, many marvels, but again, rather than going into the details about all these miraculous events, I'd like to talk to you today about one of his weaknesses, a moment of weakness that Elijah experienced, a vulnerable moment that we may be able to relate to and to benefit from. But before I do, I think I have to give you some context. And so I want you to hang in there for a while until I get to the meat of my message. Elijah was originally sent by God to confront King Ahab of Israel. King Ahab was, he did evil in the sight of the Lord, according to the scriptures, and he did more evil, more so than any other king previous. To make matters worse, he had relations with a foreign woman. You may have heard of her, the infamous Jezebel. They've written country songs about this woman, rock and roll songs, even an opera mentioned Jezebel. She was ill-natured, hot-tempered, dangerous, and seductive. She agreed to marry Ahab and be his queen, only under the condition that she bring her religion and her customs and her practices and her priests to Israel. Now, just to give you a taste of this woman's manipulative nature and her wicked nature, there's a story that I want to tell. I'm not sure how much it connects, but just to give you some knowledge of her wickedness. So there was this man named Naboth who owned some nice property next to the king's winter palace. And Ahab wanted to have that land. The king wanted to have that land. So he went to Naboth and he told him, you know, Naboth, that land is right next to my property, right next to my palace, and I really want it I want to grow vegetables there. And I will give you another prime piece of land somewhere else in my kingdom for it, or I'll pay you a fair price. And Naboth said, I'm sorry, Your Majesty, it's not for sale. This is from a family inheritance, and I just don't feel right selling it. And Naboth at the time, he kind of understood, and he said, okay, all right. Then he went home. And then he did what a lot of us do. Something happens, we accept it, but then we come home and we start running it through our heads and ruminating, and he begins to sulk. And so he got depressed. He stopped eating, and he just went into bed and turned his head against the wall and for days. And Jezebel walks in and says, what's the matter with you? Why are you so depressed? And he explained, because Naboth won't sell me the land, and I really want that land. And she goes, are you kidding me? You're going to let this insignificant flea stop you from getting that land? You're a king. Be the king. She said, never mind. I'll handle this. So she starts writing letters using the king's signature, using the king's seal, and she basically frames Naboth, accusing him of things he never did. And so they end up stoning Naboth and killing him, and the land goes to the king. After this, Jezebel influenced Ahab to build a temple to Baal, her false idol god. And now Israel is starting to get influenced by this other god. And so, Israel is flirting with other gods. And the Lord, whose very first commandment to his people Israel was, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. So he is provoked. He is not happy about this, and he sends Elijah to warn Israel of flirting with other gods. When Ahab sees him and confronts Elijah, he said, so are you the troublemaker that's going around Israel? And Elijah said, no, I'm not the troublemaker, you are. Elijah had no fear of appearing in the presence of Ahab, the king, because he always stood in the presence of one greater than Ahab, the Lord of hosts. And so, with courage and conviction, he challenges Ahab and the 450 priests that Jezebel brought along with her to a contest. He said, let's meet on Mount Carmel, which is near present day, on the border of present day Lebanon. Let's meet there, and we'll have this contest. I will set up my sacrifice to the Lord, and you and your 450 priests can set up their sacrifice to Baal. And then he called out to the people, how long are you going to be of two opinions about this? If Baal is God, go ahead and worship him. But if the Lord is God, worship him, follow him. So they set up these two altars of sacrifice. And Elijah said, whoever can call down fire and burn up the sacrifice, that is the Lord. That is the winner. And so from morning until noon, the 450 priests of Baal were chanting and going into a frenzy and cutting themselves, asking Baal to bring down fire from heaven and burn up the sacrifice. But nothing happened. I'll tell you what, if you read the story, this is in Third Kingdoms, the book of Third Kingdoms, chapter 18. In your Protestant Bibles, it's the First Kings, chapter 18. It was it was interesting because Elijah, during the contest, was not a very good sport. And he was, unsportsmanlike. He was not a gracious winner either. He taunted and trash-talked the 450 priests of Baal while they were, acting crazy. He said, hey, pray louder. Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he's on vacation. Maybe he's daydreaming. And these guys are, fervently trying to get, and then he even said, maybe he's relieving himself in some cave or something, in some men's room. This is what he said. I can't believe it. But what happened after this? So Elijah won the day. Elijah called down fire, burned up the sacrifices, all kinds of interesting things in that story. Read it. But what happens next is what I'm trying to get to. I'm sorry it took so long, but I just wanted to share these things. It was a moment that you wouldn't expect, or maybe you would. Let me tell you. Queen Jezebel did not take this very well. And so she sent a message to Elijah and said, may the gods strike me dead if I don't do to you what you did to my 450 prophets. In other words, or in mafia terms, there's a contract on you, buddy. You got 24 hours to live. So, what was Elijah's response to Jezebel's threat? This mighty, strong prophet, all these miracles under his belt, what does he do? How does he react? He runs for the hills. He's fearful. He's depressed. He's self-pitying. How can that be? I distinctly recall telling this story over a decade ago to this congregation. It's a different group of people, but I said it. And I said, when Elijah reacted that way, I said, can you believe it? One woman, this man who stood up to kings and nations and priests, one woman he gets scared of? And I thought it was a rhetorical question, but I looked up and all the guys were saying, yeah, I can believe it. I had to change the direction of my sermon then because I wasn't ready for that. So, ladies, I'll let you in on a little secret in case you didn't know it already. Your anger makes men uncomfortable. I don't think we have the emotional stamina to be in that arena for very long. You seem to have that stamina, but actually, I have a dear friend who has provided me with a list of things to say when the women in your lives get cross-eyed at you. Are you ready, guys? You may want to take notes. Yes, dear. Oh, sweetheart, what a wonderful idea. Why didn't I think of that? You're right, I'm wrong. I'll change. Let's go shopping. Well, let me try to conclude here by boldly going where no priest has gone before. I have asked women who have come to my office for confession, and they're confessing anger. I asked them, what is it that provokes you to anger? What's behind it? Almost every single time, the answer is hurt. And so I respond, if that's the case, if that's truly the case, why do you not show sadness? That seems to be the more appropriate response to hurt. Don't you know that if you show that honest emotion, it makes a man want to protect you, want to console you. It makes him want to be a man. The very thing you want your man to be, a man. But your anger and your aggression, your inner Jezebel, turns men into boys. I would ask that you allow us to give us a chance to touch the wound and to address the hurt. Give us that chance. If you do, hell itself will tremble. I asked my daughter to chime in on this because she has a background, not in anger, but in psychology kind of thing. She said, "Dad, anger is more easily accessed than hurt." And I said, okay. Well, gentlemen, let me conclude by saying, if the women in our lives do open up, and somehow let us become vulnerable, be a good steward of that moment. Don't take that moment lightly. If our women feel heard, if they feel appreciated, if they feel loved, if they feel noticed, my guess is that they won't waste their time and energy on anger and complaints. Doing little things that matter, along with perhaps that list of things to say when you're in trouble, will bring joy and happiness and peace. God bless you today. Amen.